Okay, thank you very much for staying with us and waiting while we are tuning in to our online version. And I would like to present you Arunas. And my 5 cents about his talk is that I myself am wondering if with the rise of blocks, there's a place for good old PHP developer and backend engineers in the WordPress future. So Arunas, who is an engineer with 15 years of experience, definitely has an answer to these questions, and he has a strategy to make the answer a yes. So welcome, Arunas.
Right, so hello Lisbon. The last survivors here, right? Anybody still not asleep? Hey, would be nice. Okay, so my name is Arunas, and I am a backend developer. Any of us here more? Do we have any backend developers? Okay, several of you. Any front-end developers? Okay, you saw the title of the talk. What are you doing here? Okay, but being serious, okay, so do you remember back in 2015, Matt told us to learn JavaScript deeply? Yeah? Ancient times by now, and boy, did he mean it, right? Yeah, so that's what I did, or at least I tried to do. I went in and tried working with all like build processes, webpacks, and etc. But you know, like I'm still mostly a backend developer at heart. And I have this feeling whenever I do like npm install and I see all those dependencies just going in by hundreds, like I have trust issues with that. So I always have this feeling like, damn, that's hard. It's really, really hard. Can I survive in this newfangled world of block builders and blocks and everything as an old-fashioned PHP developer? And I'll try to see what I found out with that. So I have several options for you. The first one of them is just give up. Learn the damn JavaScript. It is not that hard. I think my front-end colleagues will agree. There are tools that help out a lot. There is a script that lets you scaffold everything with like just several simple lines of terminal commands. And there is even projects like here, Blocky, at the end, that take it even further, and you might not even need to write any actual JavaScript, just some markup in the block.js JSON file. But yeah, you can do that, and that's it. End of the talk, right? Okay, probably not. We have other options. One of them is going to, no-code approach. There is a bunch of block collection plugins, quite a lot of them. I tried to list a few, definitely not an extensive list, and they do help a lot in like bridging the gap between what is offered by the default block editor and what you need when you try to build like custom designs and things. But definitely, if you try to get into doing designs that you want to make pixel perfect, more customized, and more individualized, that doesn't always work for you. So the next step further is you can use ACF. Everybody heard of that? And yeah, really, you can use block builder plugins. There are quite a few of them, not as many as block collections, but I've personally tested 3 of them, and I've just read about the fourth one that's called Wicked Blocks Builder. So yeah, you can use them. What they do is they allow you to build a block using the UI in WordPress admin. So you can go in and just create blocks, add fields that you want to be filled in, and make that all in the UI itself. Or I should say mostly in the UI, at least for ACF. Like ACF is a great plugin. It has a huge user base. It has a lot of different fields. And if you're not satisfied with all the fields that you have in the actual ACF code base, there is a lot of plugins that extend that and add additional fields for you to use, like tables and all kinds of things. But if we're talking about blocks, one of the problems we have is you can't really build the block in it just in the UI. You still need to write a little bit of code to make that work. And it's also only available in the Pro version. Not that bad, but I wanted to see what can be done with free tools. We talk a lot about open source and being democratic about it and allowing access to everybody. So I tried to look what's there without paying. So another thing I stumbled upon is something that's called Genesis Custom Blocks. It used to be called BlockLab, and it is another plugin. It also does all the same things, and you can basically build the whole thing inside the UI. Even the templates, the render part, everything can be done inside the UI. You don't really need to put any code in there. The main problem is that if you want to export and import from install to install, that's only available in free version, in Pro version. So that was where game was over for me with this one. The next one is Lazy Blocks. Again, unlike ACF, which is a big plugin that has a lot of features outside of Block Builder, it does a lot more with the fields. This one is built specifically for Gutenberg block creation, so that's nice. And it actually uses the Gutenberg itself to build blocks, so it's kind of an Inception type of situation. You have full control via the UI. And another bonus for me is you can also do a lot of that via PHP, via code. Basically, you can do everything that you can do in the UI in PHP. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. And it also has most of the field types available in the free version. Because in others, field types like repeater or post selector, post linking with categories and things like that, that go into Pro version. This one has almost everything you need. The only thing that I really miss when working with the free version is you cannot do conditionals. Like, depending on values of one field, you cannot hide or show other fields in there. Hey. But what about PHP? What can we do with PHP? Yes, we can do that with PHP, not in the core itself, but we can use some of the plugins I mentioned before to actually do that and write the whole block inside PHP, which means it's not in the database, it can be version controlled, and we can have all the nice things that we know and well about PHP. I started thinking about this a long time ago, back in 2018, during a WordCamp like this in Norrköping in Sweden. During the contributor day, me and a colleague of mine, we built a proof of concept thing called Guten Factory that did just that. As you can see in this example, it's in PHP code, you just say what's the name of the block, which category does it belong, do we need to load some styles in the editor, in the front end, what's the callback of thing that will be rendered, and also list all the fields that we want to use. So that was the first attempt. We tried it out. It was working. We had, I think, 3 different field types to choose from, like text, text area, and a select. That's it. But it was a nice proof of concept, and we would have developed it further. But right around that time, ACF announced that they are going to do their thing. I said, OK, so they got this. They don't need us. They have much more resources, much more experience, and we'll see where that goes. And as I said, you can do a lot with ACF. You still need to do some code regardless if you want it or not. But you can basically, you register a block in the code using ACF register block type, and then you can attach fields to that. Attaching fields themselves is a bit more complicated. You either work with JSON files or with big arrays that basically list every possible property a field can have. But it's doable, and it's in PHP, so it's version controlled. You can make updates, you can make changes, you can deploy that to multiple different sites, you can send that to clients, and etc. So that makes it really nice. But dealing with those big like JSON files and with big arrays is something that isn't really like readable and comfortable to use. So there is something that I found later on. Somebody has built a library that helps to abstract a lot of that and making like 200 lines of code into something very simple. And it uses like this builder pattern where you just say, I'm creating a block. And this block will have a text field, what you see is what you get editor field, an image upload field, and it will be shown on this block, on this type of block. And then just add that to ACF, and it just works. So instead of having like 200 lines of JSON, you have this like 10 lines that just says, this is how the block will look like. Really nice thing, you can find it on GitHub. It's called ACF Builder, and it supports all the different types of fields that ACF has. And it really shortens the code and makes it much more maintainable, much more usable, and much more easy to understand for somebody else looking at your code. If we want to do the same thing with lazy blocks have this built in a sense, because whenever you work in the UI and do things, you can just export, and it will generate the PHP code for you that you can use anywhere else you want. Or you can, you know the syntax here, then you can just write your own ones without ever using the UI, just doing everything inside the code. And again, it has the title, it has a slug. You can use Gutenberg block supports features. You can add controls to it. And in the code parameter, you can say what the output should look like. So basically, what's the template? What's the render for it? It is nice. But again, you have to put in all the different values for all the different options that the field has. And with many fields, that becomes like quite a lot quickly. So in the vein of ACF Builder, I have built a library that abstracts that into the same kind of situation, where you just say add text field, add rich text editor, etc., etc., etc. That also collapses that into something simple, where you only need to define things that are not default, something that you need to actually change and makes this simpler. Yeah. So these are all the different ways that you can build kind of the HTML part of a block, right? But we have some missing pieces. So we need to style those blocks. And if we are afraid of using build processes and all that kind of thing, our options are a little bit limited. But I have a couple of things that I want to recommend that are really helpful, especially when you're like prototyping things and want to work quickly. One of them is Tailwind, a CSS framework that helps you to write styles quickly, and that can be done directly in HTML. And you can use that without doing any build process. And it works nicely, especially in prototyping. Kind of a similar situation what Bootstrap used to be. Just modernized, updated, and a bit more powerful. But if you do set up a build process for that, it becomes a whole different animal. And you can get rid of all those classes that you have in the HTML and contract them into a single class and apply all the different properties to that easily. So this is a very nice thing if you want to do something really quickly. Put a prototype wireframe up. Helps out a lot. Another thing is you want to add some interactivity to it, but you don't want to delve into all the Reacts and views of the world. And again, go into all the build processes and things like that. You can use Alpine.js, which is very, very tiny. I don't remember how many kilobytes, but really, really small. Declarative and reactive JavaScript framework, which basically allows you to just sprinkle some properties on top of HTML and make interactions, like reacting to hovers, clicking, hiding something, or showing something. depending on a state. So all those small things that you want to do that in the olden days you would use like jQuery for, Alpine can do all of that without booting up the whole React thing and making a lot of JavaScript in your code. So in terms of making the website really small and not loading a lot of JavaScript, a lot of different assets, this is something that helps out a lot if you just need a few interactions. Okay, so I was really quick, so we're catching up. Do you have any questions for me?
Anyone?
Silence.
Hi.
Hi.
I have a simple question. You mentioned some tools that we can use to create our Gutenberg custom blocks.
Yep.
My question is, are those solutions use anything inside the database? Does they save anything on the database?
It depends on the way you do it. Like if in ACF, if you use JSON to load the fields in, they get also saved into the database. For other things, no. They just load on runtime for that particular like page load and then go back down. It's something that lives directly in the code and doesn't do anything with the database at all.
Thanks.
Don't talk all at once.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you very much, Arunas.
Thank you. Have a good day.